Thank you so much for investing your time with us this Saturday afternoon. My name is Linh. I'm from Vietnam, and I am a member of the Inclusive Society in Asia project sponsored by Toyota Foundation. When I first joined this project 3 years ago, in January 2019, I was still an undergraduate student at Vietnam National University who had absolutely no idea about disability studies, and concepts such as barrier-free or accessibility were still very unfamiliar to me. But thanks to this project, I had the chance to work with amazing researchers and activists in the field of disability studies in different countries in Asia, which helped me gain a deeper understanding of the rights of people with disabilities and also grow a lot as a person. So to me personally, this is not only a mentally stimulating experience, but also a very emotionally fulfilling one. And I'm sure that other members feel the same. So today we have an amazing seminar on Inclusive Society in Asia, barrier-free research from Japan, Taiwan, Thailand, and Vietnam. We are excited to share with everyone our meaningful journey so far. So basically what we've been doing during the project, what we've learned in the past 3 years, and so on. And I'll be the moderator for today's seminar. As you can see from the post in our public Facebook group, we will have 4 different sessions today: the general session, Taiwan session, Thailand session, and finally Vietnam session. And at the end of the second and the fourth sessions, or at the end of the Taiwan session and Vietnam session, we will have around 15 minutes for Q&A. So if you have any questions or comments about the presentations or the project in general, please post them in the chat or raise your hand during the Q&A. And we will collect the questions and try to answer them during the Q&A session. Before we dive into today's seminar, please mute yourself and turn off your camera. Only the presenter will have the camera and mic on. Thank you. We still have like 2 more minutes before the first presentation begins. So I think we should wait for 2 more minutes so that other people will join, and we will start at 2:35 p.m. Thank you. Now it's time. We are going to start the general session now. I hand the presentation over to Dr. Uwano Toshiyuki, or Toshi-san, our leader, who will tell us about the outline of the project.
Thank you for coming to our seminar today. I'm a project leader, Toshi Uwano, from Tokyo University. And I must tell you, today you see many photos of me. All of you will say I look fatter than the photo. It is because of the side effect of medicine. Please don't think I eat a lot at home because of COVID-19. Okay, let's start it. This title is Cross-Cultural Communication for the Inclusive Society in Asia. Can you see my slide?
Yes, we can see your slides.
Yes.
For the introduction, I must set the topic for the cross-cultural communication. I decided to discuss how to create an inclusive society in Asia. Because I'm a disabled person in a wheelchair, you cannot see me well, but I'm in a wheelchair now. And I know many Asian people are marginalized because of the barrier in the society. My answer for this assignment is barrier-free, because when disabled people are included into the society, the barrier-free is more essential than necessary. In other words, nothing about inclusive society without barrier-free. It is from nothing about us without us. And in this seminar, PWD abbreviation of people with disabilities. But some people might say disabled people. Please understand it. And my contents, first one, what is the area study? And the second one, entry to the grant program of Toyota Foundation. I'm sorry, I had to say this seminar is sponsored by the Toyota Foundation. And the third one, what did we do? And what is area studies? This project starts from the area studies. I think some people wonder what the area studies is and what is, and what do many people answer when I introduce my major is area studies and what I do. And there are many ways of definition. I usually explain that researchers define which area and study a certain theme there. And I defined Vietnam for barrier-free and other Asian countries for further research and information. And actually, some senior researchers were surprised at me when I introduced myself that I researched the barrier-free in Vietnam. And next, I must clarify what the barrier is. Many will answer stairs and bumps. They are correct. They are barrier for the wheelchair. And do you know what's more? Today, I would like you to consider more in the seminar if you can't answer anymore. Stairs and bumps are physical barrier. In our society, there are social barrier as well. One word, in a word, people's attitude. Some of you might think that the social barrier is rather new comparing with the physical barrier. Do you know this report? It is made by the United Nations. Both two barriers, physical barrier and social barrier, are defined in this report in 1974 already. About 50 years ago. Nowadays, the meaning of barrier are more barriers, such as language barrier, cultural barrier, gender barrier, racial barrier, and so on. Someone might say, where there is a discrimination, there is a barrier. Now you understand what barrier is. When people research, they must read the previous research data. There is the barrier-free data about the developed country in the library, such as United States and Europe, but it is hard to find the data in Asia countries, almost nothing. So I must collect the first-hand data in my wheelchair, like this. This is a Vietnam one. It runs in the airport in Hanoi. Under such circumstances, I visited this country in Asia. Japan, China, Hong Kong, South Korea, Taiwan, Malaysia, Singapore, Philippines, Thailand, and Vietnam. I also visited the USA too, but we don't need to compare Asian country with USA. Now I show you some interesting photos from my field work. This photo is a stair lift in the subway station in the certain country. Please notice where the call button is located. If they consider the customer in a wheelchair, they should not set it up on the foot level. Another photo is the inside bus. The logo of wheelchair is here. Actually, this bus had a wheelchair lift here, the wheelchair lift here before, but it was removed. They did not only take the lift away from the bus, they installed the chair in a wheelchair priority space. When I interviewed the manager at the bus company, he answered, only a few disabled people take a bus, so the accessibility is not necessary. No cost efficiency. I suppose that if Japanese PWD visits the other Asian countries, many will say that they don't have the barrier-free in Asia. They compare Japan to other Asian countries in terms of barrier-free with perspective of Japan. When I conducted the field work, I tried to have the perspective of local people. From these photos, we could know that they prepare the barrier-free, actually, not ignore barrier-free. The problem is that their barrier-free is not practical. Why? What is necessary for them? Some people, it is economic factors in Asian countries. Because the barrier-free needs an elevator and ramps, so it costs a lot. I guess many will say, if there is money, they can solve the problem. But I don't agree. I must emphasize that Asian countries have enough money to prepare the barrier-free tools. Their problem is that their tool is not useful, not practical. So there is another factor for the inconvenient environment. What is that? Here is an example of one city. This city is very rich. In a few years, they have achieved physical barrier-free, such as elevator and ramps for every station. But when actually took the station railway, it wasn't a few times that they refused when I used their tools for the barrier-free. You can see this machine. It is good, but it takes time because this station has more than 90 steps. 90, not 19, 90 steps from the ground to the subway platform. Some station staff refused to use this tool and told me to take a taxi. in this photo, some people making up the line, many people, before the ticket office for the disabled people in the station. You can see the logo of wheelchair, but they make the line. It was a chance to catch a social barrier as well, so I tried to go there. Actually, they ignored me. Economic factor is certainly necessary, but I came to understand their problem is that non-PWD don't understand PWD much. That's why their accessible tool is not practical. PWD are marginalized too. Now many countries work for the physical barrier because of CRPD. During my field work, I focus on the social barrier more than the physical barrier. The second, entry to the grant program of Toyota Foundation. This is from the Toyota Foundation. The term of the Toyota Foundation for the entry. When I enter this grant, there are 4 requirements: mutual understanding, knowledge sharing, and their own accessibility law without joining the United Nations, Taiwan. Some people don't know Taiwan is not a member of the United Nations. I will tell you about it later. And Thailand, PWD's mob for BTS and SkyTrain. There is a history. They won over the lift with the mob. And Vietnam, newly developing for the barrier-free. Many Asian countries, including Japan, promoted the barrier-free because of United Nations Convention of Rights of Persons with Disabilities. But they did, excuse me, I decided to discuss the barrier-free with my partners. When I conducted the field work, I had a relationship with one country to one country. It was one-sided information. I interviewed them and I collected data. They answer only. And Thailand and Vietnam. Now we have the mutual understanding and knowledge sharing among people on the ground in the East and Southeast Asia. I could fulfill the terms of Toyota Foundation. And the project members. With the research grant by the Toyota Foundation, I invited the researcher who is recited to disabled people and also leaders of disabled people group in a wheelchair. They are from Taiwan and Thailand and Vietnam and me. Don't say I'm fatter now. It is because of the side effects of medicine. And furthermore, researcher and PWD make a unit by country. Not too academic and not too enjoyable. We share the knowledge of accessibility each other. During the project, what did we do? Our project started with self-introduction in Thailand. Actually, excepting from me, most get to know each other for the first time. And we share the disability studies. The barrier-free is necessary, but we think that disability study is also very important for an inclusive society. And we associate with the local PWD to broaden our world and also broaden their world, young guys. And it is end of the camp. And the second, barrier-free tour. We take a barrier-free tour with the local volunteer people. There is a rule. We must take the public transportation. When I suggest this activity, someone usually asks me why we don't rent a bus with a lift. It is safe and fast. And there is a discount also if we are many. I say that the process of going to the destination, this process is more important than arrive here. And there are two effects. We can experience the barrier with the perspective of local PWD. Also, the local people can know the barrier and PWD has joined the society. Actually, this is my methodology of area studies. In the third, we did the qualitative research about the recognition against the barrier. When the researcher interviewed PWD, there is a model like the slide. It is called participatory research. It is common way. Researcher interviews PWD. For example, what is your barrier? But it is said to PWD, this researcher seems to have the authority, so PWD feels oppressed. So in the disability studies, there is a type of emancipatory research. PWD researchers asked PWD interviewees, interview with empathy. So this interview close to discussion or chat. What is your barrier? Oh, that's my barrier. Even if answers simple, this researcher can understand it. So answer with a mutual understanding. So this type is I do, but this has a problem as well, because less PW researchers in Asia who can understand the disability studies. Now, we have another type of research, semi-emancipatory research. I said, we make the unit, researcher and the PWD leaders. So when PW leader asks PW interviewee, what is your barrier? There is an empathy. If there is something not enough, researcher can assist PW leader. It is a semi-emancipatory research, and we take this type of research as well. And that's our project. From now on, we start with our member tell the result of qualitative research. So enjoy it.
Thank you, Toshi-san, for
Thank
giving
you.
the audience a clear explanation of our project's goals, motivations, and activities. This is a great transition to our next speaker, Professor Ching from National Yang-Ming University in Taiwan.
Okay, then I start now. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Yueh-Ching Chou from the University of National Yang-Ming Jiaotong University, Taipei, Taiwan. And then the title I'm going to present is Assessing Disability Rights in 4 Asian Countries, the Perspectives of Disabled People on Physical, Attitudinal, and Cultural Barriers. And the coordinator of this project is Dr. Toshi Uwano, and he just presented. And then the researchers include all the members of the project coming from Vietnam, Thailand, Taiwan, and Japan. And then the funding of this study was mainly from the Toyota Foundation of Japan. Thank you for Toyota Foundation. And then based on CRPD, state should take appropriate measures to ensure that people with disabilities, PWD, in this presentation, and who have an equal rights with others in the society, have access to the physical and the social environment. And many studies have focused on the accessibility of daily living experiences among wheelchair users from the cities of North American and the European countries, which belong to the global northern countries. However, disability studies should not ignore the role of cultural issues, which influence how disability is viewed. And some researchers have argued that whether the CRPD, based on the discourses from disability rights of Global North, could be generalized to PWD daily life in Global South. And some researchers have also pointed out that the place of politics of disability should be pay concern to geopolitical differences. And this study has 2 purposes. First, to compare how each state has developed its measures to support PWD, who have equal rights in terms of accessibility in Asia. And then second, to explore how PWD experience accessibility while using wheelchairs in daily life in a big city of 4 countries. And 4 Asian countries in this study were involved. 2 from East Asian countries, Global North, Japan, and Taiwan, and 2 from South Asian countries, Global South, Thailand, and Vietnam. In terms of research design, we use documentary research and qualitative approach. The sources of documentary research included policies and laws, governmental reports, online documents from 4 countries. And the in-depth interviews were conducted to collect data from PWD who were interviewed. And then the participants were recruited from 4 cities, Tokyo, Taipei, Bangkok, and Ho Chi Minh City. And the 10 participants using a wheelchair were invited in each city. We used the same interview guide based on semi-structured questions. For example, we ask, how do you feel, how do you explain accessibility? And what do you know about CRPD? And also ask, how do PWD experience accessibility in the city of daily life while using wheelchair? So the participants were invited through DPOs. DPOs, that means Disabled People's Organization. The organization is organized by PWD mostly, and or through the snowing ball. That means, some participants were introduced by the person who were interviewed. So in total, we interview 39 PWD from 4 countries. Among 39, 19 were male and 20 were female. And 18 of them use electric wheelchair, and 17 use manual one, and 2 use a crutch, that means stick, and 2 did not use any assistive equipment for moving. And 24 of them live with family, and 15 live alone or with friends, and 19 were supported by the family or parents, and 3 were supported by a live-in migrant care worker, and 3 were supported by home carer, and 6 were supported by personal assistants, and 4 supported by friends, and 10 out of 39 did not use any services or supported by informal carers. And then the first one, the findings in Japan. Japan signed CRPD in 2008, and in 2014, Japan ratified CRPD. The earliest law related to PWD was in 1949 for people with physical impairment. And in 1970, the law covered people with mental disabilities. And then the law related to buildings accessibility was issued in 1995, which covered the disabled people and older people, and paid concern to 4 types of barriers: physical, system, information, and consciousness. And in 2000, the law related to easily accessible transportation for disabled and older people was issued. And 3 new laws after 2015 were issued in Japan. First one is the Act for Elimination Discrimination Against PWD in 2016. And one is Act for Promoting the Universal Society in 2018. And another one is New Barrier-Free Law in 2021. And how accessibility in Tokyo that PWD have experienced. And 10 PWD aged between 20 and 60 were interviewed. And based on the findings from Japanese participants of this study, we found that barrier-free is widely understood because of 2020 Olympic and Paralympics. However, people still think that being barrier-free only means a physical barrier. And then the knowledge and the information related to CRPD among PWD was depending on whether they were committed to a DPO or working with people with disabilities. And the physical barriers in Tokyo that PWD experience include the older design of train systems, stairs in the restaurant and shops, and inaccessible toilets, sidewalks, housing, and taxis. As you know that the train system in Tokyo was very old, so which are always with stairs and a small space, and it's very risky during the rush hours for wheelchair users. For example, one female participant aged 40 shared that small restaurants have a tradition and a history with good features, such as being more delicious and valuable. However, there is no access for wheelchair users, even if I just want to try it. And one male participant, aged 50, shared, a Japanese taxi company was designed for the Olympics in 2020, and an accessible taxi for all peoples, but the seat was too high for the wheelchair, and the ramp board of the taxi is not strong enough to carry a PWD with her or his wheelchair. No sense. And how about social barriers in Tokyo? Here other participants responded. In Asia, the school in the community was reluctant to accept me because my wheelchair. The public officer for the local government suggested a special school in Tokyo to me. So I went to special school in the end. And then another participant also shared that traditional Japanese culture, okay, the family, based on traditional Japanese culture, the family must help each other. The families should take care of disabled children, even at school, although this custom is changing in Japan society now. And then one participant shared that, not so often now, but about 10 years ago, the bus often did not stop for me. I experienced being refused to a ride on a bus at Narita airport. And then now we move to the findings in Taiwan. Some of you already know, just like our leader, our coordinator, Dr. Toshi Uwano just shared that some of in Taiwan, Taiwan is not recognized by the UN and the WHO. So in terms of CRPD, in 2014, Taiwan issued a law to require the government to implement CRPD as other countries who have ratified CRPD. So the first law related to PWD in Taiwan was in 1980. The term barrier-free was used in the law was in 1997. And then the most significant law related to accessibility for PWD was in 2015. And in 2017, Taiwan invited international reviewers came to Taiwan to review whether the government did implement the CRPD. And then the Professor Osama Nakase from Japan, was also one of the international reviewers. And the 10 participants aged between 20 and 60 participated in a study from Taiwan, from Taipei City. And all these 10 participants used electric wheelchair. And how accessibility was defined by Taiwanese participants, they answer that accessibility means freedom, independence, and choice. For example, share. Once I open the app, I can check whether the coming bus has a low floor or not. And such a technology does give me convenience. It gives me more choices of where I could go and move quickly than ever. And then accessibility also means relationship, connection, and just share that. Accessibility becomes a bridge of the connection between me and my classmates, as she was a university student when she was interviewed. And based on the PWD we interviewed, we found that physical barriers come with social barriers in Taipei City. For example, Zhuang share. I attended the study group, and last week we read a book related to Vietnam, and the group members went to Vietnamese cafe for its Vietnamese coffee, and I could not go as the cafe has stairs. So for human relationship, I cannot be included with them. And it means that inaccessible restaurants become the barriers to his human relationship. And then the metro system was launched in Taipei City in 1996. Comparing with bus, PWD prefer using metro to bus because taking bus has many uncertainties and the dangers on the bus. For example, share. Metro availability, I save lots of time. After work, I can take the metro to go somewhere for a meal, and my choices have been increased. When I was searching for an apartment, a location near the metro station was the priority. And the chain share, if I have a choice, I will not take the bus. Waiting for bus takes 30 minutes. It cannot be guaranteed that the coming bus is fine for me to get in. I may need to wait for another 30 minutes. It remains uncertain even as I continue to wait. It's like gambling. In terms of social barriers that PWD have experienced, and Zhuang also shared. One young woman saw me and ran to me in order to give me a hand for pushing my wheelchair. It's very strange. She saw that I could move myself and even could use the easy card with the machine. Why did she think I need help? This is a stereotype that people like me always need to be helped. Very often, wherever I go, people want to give me money. Maybe I should shout if any person does this to me again. And let us move to the findings in Thailand. In 1960s, Thailand established National Economic and Social Development Plan number 1. However, accessibility issue was not included. And in 1991, Thailand issued Disability Rehabilitation Act. And it's good that right to access public facilities was included in the 1997 Constitution of the Kingdom of Thailand. And the most important law related to PWD was the 2007 Empowerment of PWD Act, which covered accessibility rights to use facilities. And the 2013 Empowerment of PWD Act amendments have extended accessibility rights, which require that the services centers and information should be accessible to PWD. And the 9 participants aged between 37 and 64 from Bangkok participated our interviews from Bangkok, and 5 use electric wheelchair and 4 use manual one. And how physical accessibility in Bangkok, as some of you may know that SkyTrain BTS system was launched in Bangkok region in 1999. Before and after the BTS system gave very different experiences for PWD living in Bangkok region. For example, one participant shared, in the past, since having an accident, I did not go out because it was difficult for travel. I just stayed at home. And then another participant, Park, shared, I always travel by subway. I sell stuff on the walkway on the subway. I take the subway regularly. And like in Taiwan, taking bus was not easy, not a good experience for PWD. For example, as shared, PWD have to spend a long time waiting for public buses, and the bus space is not suitable for a wheelchair user, and it might cause an accident. And other barriers were such as elevators are difficult to use, inaccessibility of road and buildings because of city constructions, and unmet needs of facility design. And in terms of social barriers in Bangkok, the participants share that they had been refused by the taxi drivers, very difficult to be employed. For example, pack share. PWD are difficult to be employed. I'm selling products online to earn a living. If the economy is bad, no one will buy my stuff. And then as many of you also know that most Thai people are Buddhists who believe that if you do good things will happen to you, and in reverse. So this brings negative impact on daily life of PWD living in Thailand. For example, So share, when I got an accident and become unable to walk, everyone who visited me at the hospital said, you must have done bad things before, so you become disabled. And then the last one, we move to the findings in Vietnam. Vietnam ratified CRPD in 2014. So the first law related to physical accessibility was in 2008, law on road traffic. And then the first law related to PWD was in 2010, law on PWD. And then the 2013 Constitution was very important related to rights issue for general people and as well as for people with PWD. And the 2014 Vietnam issued law on construction. In 2016, the Prime Minister approved the plan for implementation of the UNCRPD, and then the law on access to information was issued at the same year, 2016. In 2017, the Prime Minister issued a national plan of action to implement the 2030 agenda for a sustainable development, which includes accessibility, basic services, and social inclusion for PWD. And from Ho Chi Minh City, 10 participants aged between 22 and 34 took part in this study. 1 used an electric wheelchair, and 5 used a manual one, and 2 uses a scratch stick, and 2 did not use any assistive equipment for moving. And most of the participants responded that accessibility means physical access for PWD. For example, rate shared. Accessibility plays an important role for PWD in social inclusion and personal development and community contribution. But and then based on our findings from Ho Chi Minh City, all participants knew about the CRPD through the media, radio, and information from NPO or DPOs. And based on the interviews in Vietnam, we also found that the gap between the laws and the practice. For example, to share, the shortcomings of the laws is that they do not require PWD to participate in the development. As a result, the improvements remain inaccessible to PWD. Designers forget about PWD. And how accessibility in Ho Chi Minh City. In Ho Chi Minh City, there were 54,000 PWD. Among them, 16,000 were wounded soldiers. And the air rails and the subways were under construction when the interviews conducted. And in Ho Chi Minh City, there were 3 kinds of transportations, including buses, taxi, and motorbike taxi. And 1 participant replied, I was often late to school because I missed many passing buses and spent a lot of money on motorbike taxi. And then how share negative experiences of inaccessible public buildings and infrastructures in Ho Chi Minh City. And she said, once I went to Vicom shopping center, the elevator system was broken for a long time, but no one repaired it because most of their customers use the escalator, and the entrance to the supermarket has many stairs. And regarding the experience of social attitudes then shared, people's gazes and attitudes towards PWD make me feel uncomfortable. They always think that PWD are useless and cannot do anything, and the PWD should stay at home but not go out. So based on the findings of this study, this comparative study, we found that the experience of accessibility or barrier-free among PWD have been impacted by politics of the country, for example, in Taiwan and Thailand. And then the experiences have been impacted by the economic, for example, in Thailand, just the participants share in the study. And then disability rights movement of the country have played important roles. For example, disabled people independent living movements in Japan, Taiwan, and Thailand. And then we also found out how disability has been contrasted by local culture, religion, such as the belief of Buddhism in 4 countries. So in terms of similarities and the differences of 4 countries, we found that the differences of economic between North and South Asia. But we did not find so big differences of culture impact on disabled people's experiences in accessibility. For example, Dharma of Buddhism belief Because of such belief, disability has been viewed as a personal tragedy instead of a social issue or a right issue. However, it's good that it's changing in Japan society. We also hope that this study could cause some impact on such negative views on disability in another 3 countries. The final slide points out the limitation of this study, which also should be recognized. This study only focuses on PWD who live in the city of 4 countries. So our study, the findings of our study cannot generalize to PWD who live in rural area of 4 countries. And then the participants of this study were invited on purpose. So most of them were invited through DPOs. So we also wonder the participants of this study might be more active while comparing the majority of PWD of the country. Third, we also did not focus on gender, age, and social status comparison. And fourth, we did not discuss about the services accessibility, economic accessibility either. So based on the findings of this study, for the future studies, we have following recommendations. In order to make up the above limitations I just mentioned in this study. So first one, we suggest compare PWD living in the city and living in rural area is necessary, and also compare women and men with disabilities, also very important. And then compare other Asian countries from global north and the south. And then it's also necessary to compare Asian PWD with PWD from Western societies, whether the experiences between these 2 societies will be the same or different. And also to compare the similarities and the differences of the impact of different religions. For example, compare how the Buddhism and the Christian religion, whether that kind of also cause the difference impact for PWD. Okay, thank you for your listening. Sorry, I just forgot to move the slide. Thank you.
Thanks for your insights. Now it's time for our second session on Taiwan. I pass the mic again to Toshi-san. He will give us an overview on barrier-free in Taiwan.
Thank you, Jing. Thank you for your finishing your job. Jing was sick last night, but she could come to join for us. Thank you very much. You can go to bed now.
It's okay, yeah.
And my tongue